Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Unleash the Archers, Phantoma, out May 10th on Napalm Records. The album has 10 tracks, 56 minutes in length, and this is the band's 6th full-length studio album. They are a Canadian power metal band. And once again, they're doing a concept record, this time about AI and their own development of sensations, emotions, consciousness to a certain degree. This is happening in a dystopian Earth in the future. Now, the interesting aspect about this topic is that while the story is developing in the future, it really ties to the present. And I think for me specifically, I had a much deeper connection with the subject matter and therefore with the record itself. And that concept, as you would expect, plays a huge role in the overall design of this album and the overall structure of this album. After all, you're telling a story, you want to keep the listener connected and engaged with the story that you're telling, so the way you outline the songs and the different sounds and experience that you give to them are fundamental in order for that story to come to life, in order that story to make sense. I really enjoyed the design of this record from that standpoint, and when I look back at the previous 2 records from Unleash the Archers, this album, in my humble opinion, has a much better design overall. I felt more connected with the album, I felt like there was more of a sense of continuity from song to song, and overall made me not only understand but grasp the concept, grasp the story, grasp the individuality of the songs a lot better. So a much better design that increases the overall playability of the album, but it also gives it great quality and entertainment from a listener's standpoint. Now, when it comes into the sound, this is not a record that's defined by one single genre. There's heavy metal elements, there's power metal elements, there's prog elements, and there's a lot of electronic elements. And I want to start off with those because it didn't surprise me that this record uses a lot of electronic sounds, a lot of synthetic keyboard sounds. We're talking about AI, we're talking about artificial intelligence. So when you associate something to that, you tend to associate something that's synthetic, something that's robotic to a certain degree. And the best way to infuse that into the sound in order to better tie it to the concept, it's definitely synthesizers, it's definitely electronic elements. So this record has quite a bit of it, but the good news is it doesn't live off of it. They're there in order to add texture, in order to add atmosphere to the tracks, in order to add a sense of reality to the stories that are being told and to the progression from story to story or from chapter to chapter throughout the entire length of the album. I enjoy that aspect of it because it felt a little bit contained. It felt like they didn't go overboard with it and they were still concentrating on the core elements of Unleash the Archer sound and not necessarily overdoing and taking this concept perhaps a little bit too far. So I enjoy the electronic side, I enjoy the synthetic side of their sound. I think it adds reality to what they're trying to achieve. It adds reality to the story itself. And when it adds reality to the story and adds reality to the concept, it makes the overall experience a lot better. Once you peel that layer, what is left? What's left is great guitars, great drums, and obviously great vocals. But let's start off with the guitars. I felt like this record was heavier than I was expecting it. Considering the topic, considering the theme, considering the electronic sound, I was expecting the guitars to be a little bit more subdued, to be a little bit more diluted into the overall soundscape and not have necessarily a heavy fingerprint throughout. Not to say that they're heavy on every single song, but there is a little bit of an extra bite from the guitars on this record. And that is important because it counterbalances that synthetic sound that exists around it and makes the album still feel like a metal record, still feel like an Unleash the Archers record, and it allows the album to still be explosive, still have great tempos, great melodies, great sound all around, and a lot of it really depends on that energy, on that warmth, on that richness of experience that's coming out of the guitars. This has always been a key factor for Unleash the Archers, but I must say, considering the theme, considering those electronic elements, I was concerned that the guitars were gonna lose a little bit of it, of their volume, of their impact. It's not the case. They definitely deliver across each and every single song. Like I said, heavier in some tracks than others, but you always feel like the guitars have quite a bit of bite throughout the entire album. Now, the drums on this record are not heavy, at least not as predominantly heavy or as noticeably heavy as the guitars are, but they still add substance to the back end of the sound and allowing the guitars to push a little bit more forward, breaking a little bit more apart from that drum sound, creating room for themselves, but also allowing the drums to fill in all the other empty space that exists in the back end, and not allowing, once again, those synthetic electronic elements to take control of the soundscape. So while the drums didn't feel super heavy or super aggressive, not that I was expecting them to be, but I was maybe hoping that they would match, in some cases, the same sound out of the guitars, they never really went that far. Sometimes they push it a little bit, but they never go as far as the guitars go overall. But they do give a little bit more texture, more substance, like I said, to the overall sound on this record. And then it comes down to Britney and her vocals. I gotta say this, she is a great storyteller. But on this record, I felt like she did something that I'm not sure she had done before. The way she told each and every single story, or the way she described each and every single chapter of these 10 chapters that this record offers, felt so much more connected with her. Everything felt almost like a first-person account, that she was not only telling a story, but she was living the story that she was telling. The fact that she connected at a deeper level with the content of this record, and I think that to me is obvious in her delivery, allows it to be a much warmer, a much more almost synthetic delivery, because you're able to tell all the different nuances of her voice and how that impacts also the lyrical content. It's so easy listening to this record to follow what is happening in those lyrics. Sometimes that's not the case, because the way the songs are put together, the way the vocals are coming across, there's so many moving pieces, it's really difficult to pay attention or be able to focus your energy on deciphering what the words mean, what the lyrics are all about, and following along the story as it proceeds. Not the case with this record. There's still a lot of layers, there's still a lot of moving pieces, but the vocals have a different kind of warmth to them. They have a different kind of tonality to them. And because of that, because she's able to dig perhaps deeper than she's ever digged before, she's able to deliver a different kind of vocal performance that, from a listening standpoint, when you're enjoying this record, it almost feels like you're listening to an audiobook. And that is not always the case with many other bands, but including Unleash the Archers on previous concepts. I felt like on this album they nailed it. She nailed it as far as delivering a story in a synthesized way that it's easy for the listener to absorb, to understand, to digest, to connect with, because that's what you want out of a concept album. It's not just about the great sound, it's not just about the hooks. Obviously all of that is important, but when it comes to a concept record, you have to connect with a story. Otherwise the album doesn't have the playability or doesn't have the longevity. I feel like she is the cherry on top of the cake as far as delivering that sort of experience. And because of that, I enjoy this album tremendously. This is easily my favorite Unleash the Archers record, and that is saying a lot, because considering the singles, I wasn't sure that this album was going to deliver. I felt like this album was perhaps going to fall quite flat, because I didn't enjoy the singles as much as I enjoyed the album experience. And even those singles that I didn't enjoy that much, in the context of the record, they sound 1,000 times better. I honestly feel like this is one of those records that it's worth more for the collective than it is for its individualities. Now, as far as that is concerned, I'm going to tell you my top 3 songs. I feel like I'm contradicting myself, but here I am to tell you my top 3 favorite songs on this record. Starting off with Phantoma, a track that lyrically really starts to tell the story. Not that the story starts here, but I really feel like the lightning in the bottle was caught within this track, and this to me is where things start to develop. It's a song that's very musically driven. It has this electronic underlining sound to it, not having a direct impact necessarily on the guitars. It's just an underlining, still allowing the guitar sound to feel predominant within the song, and then you have the drum sound that feels very robust as well. The vocals, soar, as you would expect. And I love the layers on this track as far as the vocals are concerned, because for a song that feels like it has a lot of volume, that feels like it has a lot of musical layers, having those backing vocals, those layers in the vocals, also add layers from that standpoint. So it's a song that has volume both musically and vocally. The chorus is phenomenal, super hooky, super catchy, very impactful, and very memorable from a vocal delivery standpoint. So it's an easy story to follow. This track really cements that experience of this being a record that is easy to follow from a storytelling point of view. And then when it comes to storytelling, I have to move into Buried in Code. Such a fun song to listen to. I think this is one of the brightest, most light-hearted songs that this record offers. It has a great guitar sound from start to finish. Vocally, it feels very warm. It has this first-person account standpoint. It's a super fun track. It's an easy to listen to track. It's a simple track. I honestly feel like this is perhaps the simplest song, the most straightforward to the point track on the entire album, and it has a little bit of I work hard for my money, Donna Summer style. It's not like I work hard for my money, but I work hard for my code. So it has a little bit of that vibe. It has a little bit of that feel built into it. Last but definitely not least, Gods in Decay. This definitely has a heavier guitar sound, specifically in the verses, and then it moves into a more proggy sound in the pre-chorus, and then it becomes a straight-up power metal song in the chorus. So it's a song that's built of 3 different styles or of 3 different sound experiences, but all of them super well connected with one another. You really feel like one leads you into the next, and that one then leads you into the one that follows. So it's a song that has 3 different momentums, but all of them build up on one another, making the track feel very fluid, very connected, while being very different across these 3 different parameters. This is it, Unleash the Archers with Phantoma, out May 10th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section, and I'll let you know what my thoughts are once I hear what your thoughts are, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.